For the third time in 4 years, the Philippine volcano of Hibo-Hibo erupts, spreading destruction and death. Spewing forth clouds of acrid smoke and fiery lava, the mountain explodes as often as 6 times a day. Much of the island of Camiguin is devastated. Camiguin in the Philippines lies in one of the most dangerous areas in the world. The blessings of climate and tropic luxuriance are overshadowed by threatening volcanoes and violent storms. Now both disasters almost obliterate life on Camiguin. After Hibo-Hibo explodes, a typhoon sweeps the area. Trucks carry refugees to safety. There's long waiting, for 1/3 of Camiguin's 64,000 people are homeless. From the island's harbor, the refugees, old and young, travel to nearby Mindanao in crowded boats. Makeshift hospitals are set up for those hurt in the catastrophe. Days after the molten lava first poured down, it's still smoking and smoldering. The lava penetrates everywhere. Even a week later, it's wise to be cautious about touching it. The countryside is ravaged and smoking. Off Korea, the Navy submarine Volador carries out a dramatic rescue. Crew members have spotted a helicopter that just crashed nearby. A crewman swims out to help its 3 passengers. One of them is a woman. All have escaped. The Tin Fish maneuvers to pick up the flyers. Their plane, which pancaked in combat waters without injury to its passengers and pilot, was a Navy helicopter. There were 2 Navy crewmen on her and a war correspondent, magazine writer Charlotte Knight. The drenched trio is hauled aboard. In dry clothes, they're grateful to the submariners for their alert action. For Miss Knight, Airman Dobson, and Sanders, it's a happy ending for an accident that could have been tragic. A bushfire, one of the most disastrous in Australia's history, roars through the Blue Mountain regions of New South Wales. A wind of almost gale force fans the flames. They leap across country with terrifying speed. It's summer in Australia, and there have been no rains for months. 60 houses turn into bonfires in 12 hours as the devouring flames streak through towns and villages. Sometimes the wind-whipped blaze levels a house in 10 minutes. By nightfall, the fire is still uncontrolled. There's almost no firefighting equipment in the area. Some 2,000 volunteers attempt to conquer the Holocaust, but it's a losing battle in the blistering heat. The Australian fire is a warning to Americans to take extreme precaution to protect our country's valuable timberland. To the Pentagon in Washington comes joyous news for some families of servicemen reported missing in Korea. The UN radio flashes from Tokyo the names of almost 3,200 American servicemen held by the Reds. Both sides had exchanged prisoner lists. The names are quickly checked, and telegrams go out to next of kin. But the list is shockingly short, for another 8,000 missing men are unaccounted for. As the red list is mimeographed for reporters, President Truman warns it's unverified and is to be treated with skepticism. Reporters quickly find one famous name.
And the Pentagon has now confirmed that Major General William F. Dean is on the list of POWs handed over by the communists.
While America gives thanks, the war goes on in Korea. Republic of Korea troops who just recoiled from an enemy assault make a counterattack on the hill where the Reds are entrenched. It's a bitter struggle. Guns and tanks blast the enemy fortifications. A white cloth goes up over the red stronghold. The tremendous artillery barrage has flushed out the survivors. 2 men appear. They start to run, change their minds, and decide to surrender. Allied propaganda leaflets have promised them safe treatment. For these men, the war is over. But for the South Koreans who captured them, it's just another incident in the long struggle to free their embattled country from communist aggression.
In a sparsely populated region in southern Italy, hikers once found a hole in the earth. Geologists came. The hole was widened, and the scientists descended into the abyss by rope ladder, and a whole magic subterranean world was revealed to the eye of man for the first time. The first explorer to set foot in this under-earth palace called it the White Grotto, for he was amazed by the white, glimmering beauty of the formations that festoon it. The hanging formations you see are stalactites. Those that grow up from the floor are called stalagmites. Both are made of minerals, slowly deposited by dripping water. Like crystal chandeliers, the countless stalactites decorate the ceiling of the vast cavern. The grotto may be hundreds of thousands of years old. For the geologist, there are innumerable discoveries to be made in this strange underworld. Here is a stalagmite that looks like a flower. Onto it drips the water that has formed it, and which keeps it growing larger. And below, a pool of water so clear and untroubled that you cannot recognize it as water till a falling drop disturbs its surface. The stalagmites assume many forms in the process of growth. For instance, a toadstool, and now the head of a war club. Another war club lies on its side. Look at the intricacy of this one. The perilous trip up begins, for entering the bowels of the earth can be a dangerous adventure. The reward is a glimpse of a wondrous, beautiful world beneath the world's surface.
Over towering 3-mile-high Mont Blanc in the French Alps, Swiss newspapermen Zer and Darnstetter hunt for a landing strip hacked out by mountain guides. In their Piper Cub, they hope to make the highest small plane landing ever attempted. Here they come. It's a crack-up. A sudden gust of wind has upset the delicate craft. But her pilots, although amateurs, are as tough as the men who pioneered in aviation 50 years ago. And both men emerge from the wreckage unhurt. Looking over the damaged plane, they feel she can be repaired. The guides help them flop her over. It takes 9 days to obtain the necessary parts, but with the help of friends, the pilots personally patch up the plane. Then they plot the takeoff from the dangerous spot. Only one man dare go. Zer climbs aboard. If he can get the Cub aloft, he'll set a new light plane record for takeoff as well as landing. And there she goes. Will she fly? She does. Will she get above those mountains? She does, as courageous Swiss amateur pilots set 2 new records atop Mont Blanc.
These porpoises leaping for their dinner are thought to be the most intelligent animals living entirely in water. They are mammals, warm-blooded and air-breathing, a small relative of the whale. Any transatlantic voyage will provide a view of them bounding in and out of the waves. Like this one, they live on fish. Trainer Adolf Frohn at his Marineland, Florida pool uses this ability to leap from the water in training them to do tricks. They go through the hoop on a hand signal from Mr. Frohn. Watch this. The stick is thrown. Like a retriever dog, the porpoise grabs it and returns to his master. Mr. Frohn's training course takes 17 months. The porpoise can be taught to blow a horn. The porpoise is friendly and good-natured as well as intelligent. Here's an example of how amazingly adaptable to training the porpoise is. Denizens of the Atlantic and Pacific, they are not often captured. When they are, they take kindly to captivity. A seagoing animal that makes a rare pet. In Washington, D.C., a modern garage is built that may help solve America's parking problems. This 18-story structure automatically parks 72 autos. The motorist hands the car over to the one attendant. The gear shift is left in neutral, the brakes off. A push button sets the loading mechanism to work. The mechanism fitting any car grabs the car and loads it on the elevator. Push another button and the elevator starts up. There's no one on the upper floors. Everything is automatic. The one man on the ground floor controls everything. This car is headed for the top since the other levels are full. At its destination, the process you saw downstairs is reversed to park the auto. Now suppose the customer returns and wants the vehicle. Push the unload button. Upstairs, the car is pulled out of its slot by the mechanism you saw before. Down goes the elevator with the auto to be delivered to its owner. The whole process, parking or returning, takes just 50 seconds. The Parkomat is a step forward in the campaign to straighten out the tangled traffic of our big cities. The Hollywood home of Mr. and Mrs. Leslie Guthrie, Jr. is a real castle in the air. Faced with a building site that seemed hopeless for ordinary architecture, Mr. Guthrie and designer Richard Spencer had to figure out how to hang a house on a hillside. This fragile-looking, rainbow-like laminated wood arch was the answer. It's stronger than it looks and runs right through the house. The arch is part of the living room ceiling. From the window, there is a superb view, for the building is perched 1,000 feet above Los Angeles. Ingenious modern architecture uses an apparently impossible site to build a home in the sky.
This is a personal history, a brief review of the major league career of Joe DiMaggio. Joe made his first newsreel appearance 16 years ago, already an idol in his first year with the Yankees. The star rookie is interviewed by his manager, Joe McCarthy.
I think that you should tell some of these boys that may be listening what you had to do to reach the major league as a player.
Well, in answer to Mr. McCarthy's question, I would say for a young ball player, to do is take quite a bit of advice from the older folks. And that way, I mean, try to learn the finer points of the game. And to be a clean liver and to swing that bat hard when you see that ball on top of you.
Packed ballparks see Joe follow his own advice. Wearing his old number 9, Joe connects. A formidable hitter and a great center fielder, Joe was also one of the best at running the base paths and hitting the dirt. By 1939, Joe, with Lou Gehrig, is a member of the Yankees' dreaded murderers' row, including Tommy Henrik, the slugging left fielder, catcher Bill Dickey, another dangerous batter, and Joe Flash Gordon, belting second baseman. Note the DiMaggio grip, hands at the end of the bat for distance. A swing, a hit, a homer. Joe hit 361 four-baggers in his major league career. 3 times baseball writers with the fans' approval voted him the American League's most valuable player. His big league batting average was .325. Joe wrote a book called Lucky to be a Yankee, but he wasn't always lucky. This World Series spot in 1947 looked like a home run, but Dodger outfielder Al Gianfrido goes back for a miracle catch almost in the Dodger bullpen. With 2 out and 2 on, Joe just missed a game-tying homer. Often injured, Joe was sidelined even more frequently in the years following his Army service. But manager Stengel saw Joe could still hit in '49 despite an ailing heel. Stengel was glad to have him. It's DiMaggio Day at Yankee Stadium that same year. Plagued by injuries, DiMaggio batted an astounding .346. Brother Dom is among the thousands honoring a great and courageous player, the fisherman's son who became one of our finest sportsmen. Now in 1951, Joe says goodbye to the game his presence enriched.
You all know I've had my share of injuries and setbacks during my career. In recent years, these have been too frequent to laugh off. When baseball is no longer fun, it's no longer a game. And so, I've played my last game of ball.
This is the Symphony Orchestra of Sydney, Australia, typical of many fine symphony orchestras around the world. Yes, its young audience is interested in its functions and in its many instruments and their sounds. So Professor Bernard Hines takes the podium for a fascinating analysis of a great musical achievement, the symphonic orchestra.
Well, my young friends, I like to think of the orchestra as a group of instruments divided into families. First, the string family, the first violins, the violas, the cellos, and the double basses. And secondly, the woodwind family, flutes, oboes, clarinets, bassoons. Thirdly, the brass winds, trumpets, trombones, and tuba. And here are the French horns. I think this is the prettiest family of instruments in the orchestra. And finally, we have the percussion family, the timpani, the cymbals, the triangle, the marimba, and the xylophone, and all those instruments that are struck with a stick or a hammer. This section is affectionately called the kitchen. I expect because all the noise comes from there. I once asked a young friend of mine, how would you divide the orchestra? And he said, oh, into the scrapers, the blowers, and the bashers. It seems to me that you miss half the interest in the orchestra unless you can recognize the voices of the various instruments. Each of the instruments has a character of its own. And it is the combination of these various voices that goes to make up this wonderful instrument known as the symphony orchestra. Most of us know what the stringed instruments sound like. Let's hear a hunting tune from the horns, and the echo will come back to you over the hills. This effect is one of the loveliest sounds the horns can make. Then there's grandfather bassoon and great-grandfather bass bassoon. And now we'll play for you the woodwind family. An orchestra can imitate almost anything. Now, I wonder if any of you could tell me what this is supposed to be. And here is a charming Irish tune. Believe me, if all those endearing young charms. We will use it to show you how these groups play separately and then join together as one great family.